Welcome, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the Three Man Rush podcast. And boy, do we have a special episode for you tonight. I know a lot of you have been waiting on this one. I specifically have been waiting on this one. If you're joining us via YouTube, we want to say thank you so much and ask you to please help support the channel by clicking the subscribe button and the bell notification. You can be notified whenever we do drop new content, which is going to be a lot here coming up. And then also, if you're supporting us through podcast and audio, we also want to, say thank you so much and ask that you please subscribe to the podcast and, give us any kind of support you can. And you can also follow us on Twitter at 3Man Rush Podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, all of our Twitter handles are in the video here. So you can go ahead and follow all three of us as well. This brings us to another episode of our divisional previews. Before we get in to the end of the year predictions and all that stuff, we are doing a breakdown of all the divisions and how we think they're playing out, kind of go over how they went last year, some additions, some losses, how we see the teams performing in 2022, and then at the end of this we are going to give you our division winners. And today's division, of course, if you could not tell, if you're watching on YouTube, I already know but if you're listening, I got on some blue. I got on some horseshoe. I'm ready to go. It's the AFC South, baby. This might be what some people consider the worst division. I don't think it's the worst division, but to me, it's exciting. It's always exciting when I get to talk about the Indianapolis Colts on this show. I know a lot of the time it is a little much, but now look, I've got fair game to talk about them for at least the next hour. So we're ready. Yeah, so I am your host, Landon Oliver, here with my two co-hosts, Andrew Scott and Jared Holly. We're not having him at the bottom. I'm pointing up to him. So, just before you started, I do want to ask, how you guys are doing.
As I've said the last couple episodes, we're one episode closer to real NFL football, so I'm doing great.
Yeah, Hall of Fame game Thursday night. It's crazy. We're there.
We're getting real close to it, and
no players of note whatsoever will play in that game. But nonetheless, It is a real football game that is happening.
So. But look, this is what I don't get. So you watch, everybody gets really into college football, and they're like, oh, like college football, yeah, like we're so excited. And then they watch a preseason game like this, and it's like second, third stringers, and they're like, oh, these guys suck. These guys are the college all-stars.
Yeah.
How do you like college football, but you shit on second and third stringers in a preseason game?
I mean, I see it.
It's absolutely just the allure of the atmosphere and things that surrounds college football. Because your point is fair and it's well taken.
The football that will go on.
The actual football that's played on the field.
Exactly. Will be so much better than most college games.
Yeah.
You got to think of it too, though. Like, the games mean nothing, really.
And like the swamp and people touching a rock when they walk down the aisle. Like,
I know, but that's truly what it is, though. Like,
so it's all the atmosphere. I don't care about none of that. I want to watch quality football.
Yeah,
and I want to watch professionals at work.
My biggest problem with preseason, it's almost like it's kind of like an all-star game to an extent, where like you can't really, like, the players don't play enough. There's too many ins and outs. There's too many rotations. That's what I hate.
Well, they want to get looks at certain guys. They want to get, schemes. They want to work through some kinks.
But that's
at the same time, they don't want to
show
too much.
NFL front offices don't give a shit about how we feel. They want to figure out who those last few guys are that they need to cut and the guys that are going to make the team.
See, that's exciting to me because
it is to me too. I agree, but just to the general public.
Which is crazy to me because you have guys that are literally like, this is what I don't understand. You have guys, especially like when you start getting into like the third and fourth quarter, where like you're talking about like third, like undrafted free agent guys.
It's talking about guys like fighting for.
They are fighting for their livelihoods
out
on that field. So you cannot tell me that preseason does not matter.
And that's one thing that I would say.
That's these guys' lives that are on the line.
That's one thing that I will say. I really appreciate. Like I understood the aspect. I understood the aspect of it to an extent, but Hard Knocks over the years has really like drove the point home of how important those reps are.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
and how
sure, is it as
crucial
exciting
each
as
and every snap? Like to us, we're like looking at it from a fantasy standpoint, or just from a fan looking for relevant names. Like we're just like, whatever. But
you know how I
you've
am, man.
got guys literally like
I'm much more rooted in like the real world. Like
there's guys that like each and every snap could
they're
depend
going
on if they get a
balls to
fucking
the wall.
job or not.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, no, no, the preseason is so
I
underrated.
love it, man. I love it, and
I agree.
yeah. Is it as exciting as watching Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes on Sundays? No,
Nah,
but I mean,
by God, it's better than no football.
exactly.
Amen.
And I'm here for it, man. We actually get football tomorrow night. I'm fucking excited, boy. I can't wait. So, not only am I excited about that,
You get an
I'm
AFC
excited
South
about this division. Yeah, the AFC South, baby. I'm excited to talk about this. So, obviously, last year, let's go ahead and break it down. We see the Tennessee Titans. They're there. And the Colts are second.
Yeah.
The Jacksonville Jaguars brought up the rear once again, ending up with the number 1 overall pick. But hey, look, they don't have Urban Meyer, addition by subtraction. Really excited for the Jaguars this year. I think all the girls in Jacksonville at bars, they are now safe as well, unless the Cleveland Browns come to town. They'll be okay for a while. But but yeah, look, let's get into this division here. So if you didn't know, we usually start at the bottom, work our way up, and then we'll give you our predictions at the end. So let's start our way at the bottom, like Urban Meyer here, grabbing that ass right in the bottom. And we're gonna start here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and obviously additions. Christian Kirk, they signed him, top 5 wide receiver money, Christian Kirk. Which, hey, look, you're paying the Jacksonville tax, or what do they call it? The Jags tax or something like that.
The Jag tax, yeah.
Yeah, the Jags tax. I mean, get them to come down there. You got to overpay.
You got to pay them. You got to do something to get them to come down to Jacksonville.
Yeah. So, they got Christian Kirk, which I actually like. I think he's a good wide receiver. I don't think he's like that level, but I think it was a good move for them.
Yeah, he's not the level they paid him to be, but he's definitely the best receiver on that roster.
Yeah, Evan Ingram. Hopefully, with that Jags tax, they also bought him some either new gloves or new pair of hands, because apparently he has been dropping everything in camp all over again.
Hopefully, the sticky tape they paid for regular season is better than the practice sticky tape.
Brutal. And offensive guard Brandon Scherf coming over from the Commanders. Actually, a good deal, solidifying that offensive line there. In the interior, Arden Key, Fole Fatuskasi, Foye Aluakon, which was the linebacker, one of the better linebackers in the league, actually. Really underrated because he played for Atlanta. Nobody knew who he was, but he was one of the best linebackers in football last year, so that's a good move. And of course, your boy Darius Williams coming over to the
yes, sir,
as well. Another really underrated move for them as well. Now they did lose DJ Shark, Miles Jack, which I do think that was a pretty big loss for them, and Andrew Norwell, the offensive guard that they paid a ton of money for a few years ago, but that's off the books now. But overall, look, the big thing is for me is they already had like a semi-decent foundation with James Robinson. They drafted Etienne last year. They have some decent wide receiver pieces there. They went out, got Christian Kirk. The big thing is Trevor Lawrence. People forget because of last year. So telling Jared before the show, I was like, look, man, people don't really realize how toxic of a situation that was last year for all the players, but most notably your to throw a rookie quarterback into that kind of a environment is just almost like unheard of. And so, yeah, he didn't play that well. Urban Meyer's not there. They finally have Doug Peterson, which I think that's the biggest addition of all. They have Doug Peterson in that room. And as a former quarterback, that's a guy that knows what it takes to be successful in the NFL. He's won a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles as his quarterback. Neither of those guys are anywhere near as talented as Trevor Lawrence is. He has some really interesting pieces, weapon-wise to work with as well. And that defense, they're young, they're rebuilding. I mean, they still have some good pieces down there as well. So I think this is a team that like they might finally start to figure it out. Now it is going to depend on the growth of Trevor Lawrence, but I think this team actually has a shot to be like pretty decent this year. Like I think at most they can be a 500 ball club this year.
That'd be a huge jump.
That's a huge jump.
To go from 3-14 to a 500 team. I think you're right though. Doug Peterson makes a world of difference, and especially for Trevor Lawrence, they've got weapons. I know people have chuckled at their offseason spendings, but at the end of the day, man, it's a better roster than what it was the previous year offensively.
We haven't even talked about the number 1 overall pick as well, which I mean, like I know we all kind of clowned it because you have Aiden Hutchinson sitting there, and like this guy, came out of nowhere and ended up as the number 1 pick, and everybody's like, well, like we don't know if it's going to work out, but I mean, like you got to have talent to end up as number 1 overall, and so I mean, like we talked about that, we didn't even mention their number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to go ETN. We didn't get to see him last year in the regular season. Makes a world of difference. I know. I'm excited about that one too. Like the fantasy community is very excited about that. I hope James Robinson's okay, but at the same time, I definitely want to see ETN more than I do James Robinson this season. I think they lost Miles Jack's a huge loss, man. Like I think that's a big loss for that defense. But I think they're better than a 3-win team for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they lost Miles Jack, but like we said earlier, they did get
significant additions to the linebacker position.
Yeah.
And then they grabbed Devin Lloyd at the back end of the first round as well.
I was going to say,
to me, in my opinion, I think Devin Lloyd was the best linebacker in this draft, and they were able to get him at the back end of the first round. So I think with the linebacker they grabbed from the Falcons, and then Devin Lloyd grabbing him in the draft, I thought that was huge. Being able to pair Trayvon Walker with Josh Allen on the edge is solid as well. There's definitely some, and then Shaq Griffin coming over.
Don't forget they got Chad Muma also at linebacker as well.
True.
And he's a good player too. So
yeah.
I think while Miles Jack might be the better individual player, I think as a whole their linebacker room is a lot better as a whole this year than it was last year.
Yeah, definitely. And then being able to bring over Shaq Griffin from Seattle, and then bringing over Darius Williams from the Rams, the secondary, the cornerback position at least is certainly improved. Now safety could still use some help, but the cornerback position is looking much better than it was. The corners, the linebackers, the edge rushers, those all look really solid to me, in the long term. They still have to figure out what they want to do from the safety position and the defensive interior. But I would expect to see a significant leap from Trevor Lawrence. And if you've listened to this show at all over the last 2 years, you know how big of a Travis Etienne fan that I am. So there are no doubts that I think that he makes his path to stardom. I think starts this year, and he doesn't look back. I think Travis Etienne, his ability to both run the ball and catch the ball, I think he's made for the NFL right now. The big question mark on the offensive side of the ball is just how does the wide receiver room shake out? They threw a lot of money at Christian Kirk and at Zay Jones. They already had Marvin Jones Jr. and Laviska Shenault, Laquan Treadwell in place. They already had Dan Arnold in place. They brought in Evan Ingram at the tight end position. Like Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a top end option, but he at least has bodies to throw the ball to, and he has he has a coaching staff that's going to set him up for success much more than the previous one did. So while I still think it's not out of the realm of possibilities for Jacksonville to finish last in this division, I still think they improve on last year, which is, that's a pretty small bar considering the bar that was set by Urban Meyer. But yeah, like you said, Landon, the biggest addition / subtraction is going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson. This is going to be a professionally run team now with Doug Peterson as the head coach and not Urban.
Not gonna have kickers out there getting
kickers can come to work feeling safe.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all we have on the Jaguars right now. But yeah, we're looking for, or at least I am. I don't want to speak for both of you guys, but I think I'm looking for a pretty markedly like improved roster and success rate for this year for them. So now let's move into the team as well. Bringing up the rear in the division. That was the Houston Texans, finishing third here. The additions, they didn't really add a lot on their end. They did, bring in Jerry Hughes and Marlon Mack, just kind of like some veteran depth pieces there. They did lose Deshaun Watson, which, congratulations to all the women of Houston getting away from that. Justin Reed and Lonnie Johnson as well are now gone as well. So some pretty decent losses outside of their quarterback. That's a positive loss. And then I think Davis Mills too. Like Davis Mills had a damn good year last year, man. Like he was really impressive.
He was the second best rookie quarterback behind Mac Jones.
That's right. Just let you know.
Oh Lord.
So I mean,
box.
This is a team to me. I think they're clearly like going into a rebuild. Like,
more than anybody in the league, they are clearly doing that.
And one, like, especially like we don't know what's going to happen, but like what we hope happens, like the bounty they got from Cleveland as well. If Cleveland kind of falters this year, like they could be set up for like an expedited rebuild almost, where like they're going to have multiple first round picks for years to come. And, as long as, I mean, who knows what's going on with the front office there with the whole, like, Jack Easterby thing and, who's really running the team. The ownership is kind of iffy. So, I mean, like, there's still a lot of question marks within the organization. But if they can get some of these picks right, and I think this year for them is more of evaluating, like, was the Davis Mills thing last year for real? Or, are they going to be looking for another quarterback? A franchise quarterback coming into this year's draft. Because, I mean, it is, for, all purposes, a really good quarterback draft. So it's kind of like, well, like, this is the year to find out, like, is the Davis Mills thing real? Do we have a franchise quarterback? And if not, do we move on? Can we get that guy in the draft? As well as, having multiple picks and stuff like that. But other than that, there's not really a ton to like about this roster right now. This is to be one of the worst rosters in football.
It's the worst, in my opinion. Truthfully,
I mean, like
it sucks to say, but like top to bottom, I think they're the worst roster in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that. I know Atlanta,
Atlanta's pretty bad.
Atlanta's pretty rough, but I think Atlanta is probably
Atlanta at least has Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And Houston, to its credit, it has Derek Stingley, it has Desmond King, but it's like, if Davis Mills doesn't take another step forward, I think it's pretty clear this is the worst team in the league from just a pure roster construction standpoint. You got Brandon Cooks is incredible. He continues to be undervalued, but I mean, you got Brandon Cooks, you've got possibly Derek Stingley with what I hope he will be, and then you've got Desmond King, and it's like, outside of that, I mean, what's really to be all that excited about with this team? Yeah,
it's a pretty rough.
It's tough, man.
Yeah, it's rough.
Bad roster overall.
It's what they signed up for. Like, you kind of, if you're a Texans fan, it's not like this isn't fucking breaking news for Texans fans,
right? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's pretty clear where they're like headed right now, especially like at least for this year. It's like pretty clearly like, hey, we're rebuilding, but we want to see if Davis Mills is the guy. If not. If not, we're going to suck. We're going to have a top pick in a very quarterback-rich draft. We're able to get that guy. We have multiple first-round picks for the foreseeable future. And then
Davis Mills truly was the second-best rookie quarterback last year, but like they're going to be.
He didn't really have a lot to work with.
No, and he didn't. But they're going to be again. It's tough for Davis Mills because he's going to have to play really, really well for them to decide not to go after a quarterback.
Yeah.
With guys like C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young at the top of the draft, and all indications based on their roster construction is they're going to be right there with Atlanta and those guys. contending for one of the top picks in the 2023 draft. So Davis Mills is going to have to play really well for them to be like, you know what, we're going to go after a Will Anderson or somebody like that as opposed to going after a quarterback, because they're going to be right there in the mix of things.
I tell you right now, I hope they don't go after Will Anderson, because I do not want to see that guy.
That guy's a game breaker. God.
I'll say one thing about Davis Mills too. Like, he's gonna get a fair shake. Like last season, he had Tyrod Taylor. You know, like he was injured, which gave Mills the window to even play. You don't have that situation. You don't have Deshaun Watson over your franchise anymore. What the situation is going to be about. So
Kyle Allen is his backup, and that guy's a career backup.
Right? Yeah, he's got the job. Like, it's his. I mean, he's not. No matter what the record.
I just hope for like Davis Mills, like, I guess for his sake, that like they do know like there's not really a lot around him, so they're able to like evaluate the quarterback play. Like,
you know, he's not going to get a fair shake though.
But I'm saying, like, as like an individual piece,
he's going to have to go off. Basically, man, they're going to have to overachieve. You were talking about Jacksonville going 5. If Houston goes 500 this year, Davis will be their quarterback. I mean,
that's 500. They should have the coach of the year.
And they'll probably still move off from Davis Mills. They'll probably still find a new head coach.
It's going to take every bit of that for him to keep his job as a starting quarterback for that team.
Yeah. Houston's tough, man, because I mean, like, even though I like Sauce Gardner more than Derek Stingley during the draft process, I don't necessarily hate the fact that they took Stingley over him. I think Stingley's going to be a stud as well. It was not a 1-2 scenario. It was a 1A, 1B scenario. So I think Stingley was a great pick. But, man, this team has a lot of holes. And they are very clearly in a rebuild, you know. So it's just like – I just hope Davis Mills gets a fair shake, because it just seems like it seems like it doesn't matter how well he plays, he's gonna get replaced, and it sucks for him, and it just kind of sucks the situation he's in. But Brandon Cooks is going to continue to be undervalued as a player.
Well, the good news is, I guess, for him, if he does end up getting replaced, then there's a good chance he finds a home and it's not in the Texans organization, which is a good thing. So. Yeah, it's just, you know, it is what it is with the Texans. I mean, there's not really a lot to talk about. You know, now maybe coming into next season, you know, after, you know, they have a top pick and all that kind of stuff is going on, then, you know, we're able to kind of say like, oh, well, maybe the Texans are kind of looking like what the Jaguars are looking like this year, where, you know, they have a stronger roster. Maybe they make some free agent moves, you know, stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how it pops out. But
I think we lost Jerry momentarily.
Yeah, I think so too, and hopefully we can get him back here, because this next part is the part that you've all been waiting for, and that is the team that finished second in the AFC South. Should have finished first, but, you know, left-handed passes, you know, no checkdowns.
Ankles.
Yeah, two sprains over here. That is the Indianapolis Colts, which, look, it's not all on Carson Wentz. And honestly, like, I don't want to make this a Carson Wentz thing either, because I think we've all like discussed that as nauseum. Like, we know what happened last year with the Colts. We, went over it multiple times on the show. We've talked about Carson Wentz and the low points and the high points and all that stuff. And that's like, I don't want to revisit all that on here as well. It turned this into something like that. But, at the same time, we do kind of need to, discuss some of the losses and the additions here. And, some of the losses obviously is the Carson Wentz move, him moving on to the Commanders. Marlon Mack, as we mentioned, the Texans earlier. T.Y. Hilton still unsigned. Zach Pascal going over to the Eagles. Eric Fisher, Mark Glowinski, the left tackle and the guard. And Xavier Rhodes and Rocky Ya-Sin getting moved over to the Raiders. And the additions, Yannick Ngakoue, Stephon Gilmore is a big one. Rodney McLeod coming over at safety. And the big one that is really what I want to touch on here is Matt Ryan, the new quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Before I get started, I do want to ask, what are y'all's takes here on Matt Ryan? Because we've seen the last few years in Atlanta, we've seen the struggles of him. Not necessarily, I mean, I think some of it like number wise, but also, record wise. We've seen the team around him kind of disintegrate, and he's kind of been the last leg there that's kind of holding that organization afloat. So, do you think like all that was kind of like indicative of where Matt Ryan is as a quarterback now? And do you think any of that changes now that he obviously, he's got the best run game in football? He has a top 10 defense. He's got a good O-line. He's got some decent weapons there. All indications are he's going to have a lot better supporting cast than he's had probably since that Super Bowl run. And in some areas better than he had during that Super Bowl run. So how do you guys see the whole Matt Ryan thing?
I mean, I don't know if it's Matthew Stafford level of like going from a bad situation to winning a Super Bowl, but I definitely feel like he's in a much better situation than what he was in Atlanta. I mean, you hit it, man. Like, it's a better defense, it's a better coaching staff, it's a better run game, it's a better offensive line. Matt Ryan's had a horrible offensive line the last few years.
The biggest upgrade of the offseason for anybody, like whether it's team, players, anything, is going from Jalen Mayfield as your left guard to Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, I mean that goes without saying. I do feel like where I feel like Matt Ryan still has something left to prove and still has some gas in the tank. He was having like with Atlanta towards the end, like a lot of aging players. Julio Jones has not been the same guy with all the injuries are piling up over the years. He did have Kyle Pitts last year who balled out, who said he's going to be good for a long time, no matter who his quarterback is. But Matt Ryan obviously made Kyle Pitts very relevant last year. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Some of the throws he made to Pitts were insane.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think Matt Ryan's a smarter quarterback.
Windows voice.
I definitely – I feel like it's an upgrade at quarterback for the Colts. Am I 100% sold that it's going to get them completely over the hump? No. But in the same manner, like I definitely feel like the division's taken some steps back as a whole. So we'll get into predictions later, but I think everyone's on the same page in a lot of areas.
Can I toot my own horn a little bit? Can I do that?
Let's go.
Go ahead.
So if you're a listener of the show for some time now, there was some speculation of Wentz being traded back whenever we were recording these shows, and we were talking about fits for the team, and then we were talking about Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield, Matt Ryan, and we were asked at the end of the show how would we rank the guys. I was the only one that ranked Matt Ryan as the number one option for the Indianapolis Colts. And I wish I would have pulled it before so I could roll the tape. But I think it's a perfect fit. I really do. And
I'm pretty sure I said if he was actually available.
We could roll the tape, but I know you guys were a little bit more excited about Baker Mayfield than I was at the time.
I was not. No, I was not wanting Baker Mayfield at all. I do remember that.
Landon, I'm pretty sure Baker Mayfield was your number one option.
I don't know if he would be number one out of like the available options. Like we're talking about, like Baker.
Matt Ryan was in this group of people.
I don't think he was.
I'll have to roll the tape. I'll have to roll the tape because I know that it was. But nonetheless, my main point is Matt Ryan is a very clear upgrade for you guys, but it just really, really sucks that you guys have to play in the AFC. Because I think Matt Ryan makes you guys. Matt Ryan is enough of an upgrade at the quarterback position to make you guys a clear favorite to win your division. I've picked the Titans to win the division the last 2 years. Spoiler alert: it's not going to happen this year for me.
That's right.
But even saying that, with Matt Ryan, there's still a handful of teams in the AFC I'm more comfortable betting on than the Colts, and that's not a knock to the Colts because they Matt Ryan is an upgraded quarterback. They have a great roster, but damn, the AFC is just really.
Well,
really
I think like
tough.
the main goal, like I mean, obviously, you always want to win the Super Bowl, but I think the main goal is like win your division, get into the playoffs.
Anything can happen at that
Well, I
point.
mean, look, Cincinnati last year. I mean, it's the same. Like,
We picked them to
nobody had
finish
the.
dead last.
Yeah, we picked Cincinnati
I had them
in their
get
division.
every playoff game last year too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I mean, like, if you can win your division and make the playoffs, it's 0-0. Everybody's, it is what it is. Like,
I think the other thing, obviously, we're on the same page with the Colts winning the division, so they're a playoff team, and they'll most likely have a home game in the playoffs against a wild card team is what I kind of think will happen. Man, if any of those wild card teams come out of West, like the Colts just do not have enough firepower to match up with these teams, and they play in a dome.
Okay, so
that's the hardest.
I think you're wrong here.
No, they play in a dome, and that's what makes it even harder for them to win in the playoffs. And that's another
Okay, so there's a few things to this, okay, and I think this is kind of going really underlooked, and this is actually something I wanted to bring up even before you make this point. Is some of the, everybody, you talk about Matt Ryan as the big move and all that, but like nobody's really talked about the Yannick Ngakoue or Stephon Gilmore moves. I mean, we're talking about a defense that was top 10 last year already. You add Stephon Gilmore, who after he came back from injury last year, he was a top 8 cornerback.
I mean, Ngakoue, I agree with, and Gilmore, I agree with too. But you were down talking Gilmore to me personally whenever I was excited about the Rams tossing to bring him in.
Before, the injury factor
before the Rams, like before the Colts brought him in, the Rams were looking at him. You were talking me down on him before the Colts brought him in,
what was the down thing that I was down on?
I agree with your point. I agree with your general point.
Was it the play or was it the health?
Well, you did say that his play regressed from previous years.
From defensive player of the year, yes. He's not a defensive player of the year.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, I think.
But he's still clearly better than any quarterback they had last season.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that point.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, you're taking a defense that was top 10. You're upgrading in the secondary. They had one of the worst pass rush win rates of all teams last year. Still finished in the top 10.
And Ngakoue would definitely help with that, yeah.
Well, you have a jump from Kwity Paye going into his second year, who I think, you liked, I liked.
I was a big fan of Kwity Paye.
So you have a jump from him. You still have DeForest Buckner. Then you add Yannick Ngakoue. You have Dio Odengbo going into his second year. Grover Stewart still there. So, like, your defensive line is tough. You still have, to me, the best linebacker in all of football. And I don't know how anybody debates that. And that's, in Shaquille Leonard. There's no debate on who the best linebacker.
There's a few really good linebackers.
There's a few really good linebackers. No, I'm not
really good.
That's not saying like the other ones.
Shaq Leonard is a stud in of himself, but
he's a game, like he changes a game in almost no way.
He's definitely better than any linebacker in the league in terms of like game-changing plays and turnovers and things like that. Like he makes things happen better than any linebacker in the league.
Also, best run defense grade as well. So, but regardless, so you have and then you're getting into now Kenny Moore,
stud,
Stephon Gilmore,
stud.
Julian Blackmon coming back from an ACL injury or Achilles injury. Dude was on pace to be a monster.
Right.
Ronnie McLeod, really good depth. They drafted
love McLeod.
Nick Cross drafted.
Love Nick Cross.
Exactly. So defensive backfield DB's looking good. Linebackers, and we didn't even touch on Okereke, who is a really good linebacker as well. Your defensive line improved. I mean, like, that defense is loaded to the gills. Probably only behind, like, maybe the Chargers and, like, a couple other as far as, like, overall talent on that defense, like, on all three levels.
I have no qualms.
They have all pros on all three levels.
I have no qualms with picking the Colts. Like, I will pick the Colts to win the division without any hesitation.
How many playoff games do they win?
I would be hard pressed to pick them to
I
win
think it
more than
depends on
one
who they
playoff
get
game.
in and who they get.
It
So,
does
here,
depend
so
on
here's another
it
thing.
depends
So
on
here's
the
another
seeding
thing
and things
too.
like that.
And
But
I think
I
this
just
also kind of played it. This
Matt
also kind
Ryan.
of played.
Look.
Look, hold on. Let me finish my second point real quick. So you get into the defense, you get into the offensive line, you get into the running game, all that kind of stuff. But they still play in the AFC South. So outside of maybe the Buffalo Bills in their division, they have what you guys said was the easiest division in all of football. So they have at least 6 games against the easiest division in all of football. Meanwhile, the AFC West, and you kind of saw this play out last year. They're going to beat themselves up all year. You have the AFC North. They're going to beat themselves up all year. And, those teams have to play each other 6 times each. The Colts get the Jaguars and the Texans at least 4 times.
So do you think they're going to be the 1 seed?
I think they have a shot
concerned
at it.
about.
That's the point I'm going to say. As you were saying, they play in a dome. Well, no, I'm saying, but Jared was like, well, they play in a dome. What happens, when they get in the playoffs and they're not in a dome? And I'm sitting there thinking, it's just like, I think they had them in Buffalo. I think the easiest path to a 1 seed.
Outside of Buffalo, though, AFC team like the Chargers played in a dome. The Broncos don't. But the whole playing in a dome thing that matters.
Yeah,
none to me. That I don't factor.
Because that's what you do too. It's like I don't think the Colts are a dome team.
No,
they're not built to be a dome team.
They're built to run the ball.
But they play in the dome.
Which is good for Matt Ryan.
I think the Matt Ryan acquisition is huge, but I also don't want to.
No, I'm not sitting here saying
I don't want to put too much. Like Matt Ryan is still a middle. He's a middle of the road quarterback.
I think he's above average.
I mean, there's 32 teams in the league. 16 would be middle. I would call him a top 15 quarterback. He's in the middle.
I think he's closer to 10 than he is to 15.
I disagree.
That is extremely debatable, and
it's debatable. I'm not saying you can't debate it.
I think he's closer to 16 than he is to 10. But
regardless,
my whole point is that Matt Ryan takes this team to a point to where I was not comfortable. Even I was a Carson Wentz stan, and I was not comfortable still picking the Colts to win this division last year. This year, I will again, spoiler alert for the end of the episode. I'm going to pick the Colts to win the division mostly because of Matt Ryan, and it just kind of sucks for the Colts and for Matt Ryan that this conference that they play in is so tough that the addition of Matt Ryan isn't enough to match the addition of Russell Wilson with the roster that he has around him, or the come up of Justin Herbert having to deal with Mahomes. And the AFC is so complex that I love what the Colts did to get a leg up from the division, and I think that they're much better than they were last year. But again, a week or so from now, we'll get into this a little bit more in depth in terms of who we pick to win what games and shit like that. But it's gonna be really difficult for me to pick them to win more than one game. I think Matt Ryan's good enough to get them to a place that they weren't able to get to last year, but I don't think he's good enough to get them past the Justin Herbert.
And that's only the point I'm trying to make is when I'm talking about the defense and running game and the offense is he's not going to be asked to do that.
Right.
He's not going to be asked.
He doesn't have to be the guy.
He doesn't have to be the guy to get them over the hump. He has to play. He has to play smart, efficient football. He needs to be accurate, which are all things he still does at an elite level.
Absolutely.
I'm not talking about middle of the road. I'm saying
he is
those things at an elite level.
Regardless if you look at under pressure, not under pressure, the guy is accurate.
Yeah, one of the most accurate quarterbacks, and the leadership factor, which is what they didn't have
you can't quantify that. Like you can't put that shit on a spreadsheet, but it counts and it matters. And
he is an elite level leader, an elite level quarterback in that organization. And I think that's what he's going to be asked to do. He's not going to be asked to go out there in January and match Patrick Mahomes pass for pass. He's going to be asked to play efficient football control the clock, mistake free, run the ball down their throats, and then let that defense go to work. And that defense is as talented as any defense in football.
That's where my Matt Ryan concerns start. I guess is like I don't have any like if you told me like you need to bet on one team that's going to win the division, like the Colts would be on the top of my list of teams to pick to win the division.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're the best team in football.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not.
But I think they have as good a chance. Like once you get into the playoffs, I think this team is built the way you want it to for January and February.
You have to have a guy, you know, and regardless if you want to blame it on Kyle Shanahan or whatever the case may be, you have to have a guy that can make the plays whenever they count. Yeah. And the couple of times Matt Ryan's had that opportunity, regardless if you want to blame it on coaching or whatever, it just has not broke his way.
Yeah,
that was whenever he had Julio Jones in his prime and Calvin Ridley, whatever the case may be, and he has Michael Pittman now, who's a stud.
Super Bowl,
but like it's just whenever push comes to shove, like I'm very like the Colts winning their division is one of my most confident bets of the year.
like last year with Matt Stafford, like you get into like the fourth quarter comebacks and the way he's always like
exactly like
Stafford since his career, like so Stafford had 43 fourth quarter comebacks in his career before he went to the Rams. Matt Ryan has 42.
Yeah.
So
it's just
which were they're number one and number two.
It's not a knock against Matt Ryan at all either. It's just purely like, holy shit, the quarterback talent in the AFC is just so unreal.
Yeah, I agree. I think outside of just like a few, but that was like my whole argument. I'm not arguing that Matt Stafford is Mahomes or Herbert or like he's clearly not any of those guys. Like physically, or I mean, maybe mentally he's better mentally, but like he can't do the stuff they do. He can't do the stuff that they bring. But he's not asked to because I think top to bottom, the roster of Indianapolis is as good as maybe any else. I mean, like you have the Bills, maybe the Chargers, like there's a few other like rosters. I think from top to bottom, this roster is like
very good,
very well built and very well balanced, and it's built for January. It's built for cold weather. It's built for playoff football, where you run the ball like you don't. As Colts fans, Jared, I know Jared can relate to this more than anybody. How many better quarterbacks than Peyton Manning were there in the mid-2000s?
None. I mean, he was the best, but he
and
played.
What type of team always knocked us out in the very first game of the playoffs?
A team that ran the ball.
And did what?
Played defense.
What type of team are the Colts?
They're that team, and it's 2022. And like, it took me a long time to get to this point too, man. Like, trust me, I've had that mindset where defense and running the ball it doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't. Like, look, I mean, prime example. If that was the case,
there's the Cincinnati Bengals last year was a perfect example of that, where you had Joe Burrow for almost as many interceptions as touchdowns during the playoff run, but they had an elite defense, and Joe Mixon ran the ball.
That's a very.
I mean, it's still the easiest path to win.
But calling the Bengals defense elite is a stretch. Like that's like MJ from the free throw line type.
No, I'm not saying like overall, but I think in the playoffs, like
they exceeded expectations, but they weren't an elite defense though.
Yeah, but I'm not saying they're an elite defense, but in those few games they played to go to the Super Bowl, they absolutely were. And that's all that counts.
I mean,
how many points did they give up against Kansas City?
A ton.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know. I don't know if you can call that. I don't know if you can call that defense
turnovers though, and I think that's what you have to do.
It's
a lot of turnovers in the playoffs.
Whenever you get into the playoffs, it's all about making the plays that are presented to you and making the most, like in terms of like making like you creating turnovers and getting points off of turnovers and things like that. Like
24 points.
Yeah, and most like the all credit in the world to Cincinnati what they did in that second half. But like
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. They allowed 3 points in the second half.
Like 21 points in the first half, right? Something like that.
3 points.
18.
Yeah, like
21. 21 in the first half.
Yeah, so if you give up 21 points in the first half to the Kansas City Chiefs, like typically you're probably not going to win that game. All the credit in the world for the adjustments that they made and things like that. Yeah, they deserve all the credit in the world. My only point is that it's just like
I think we're all repeating the same thing though.
We are. I don't feel like we really disagree on any of the points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We keep going back and forth. I think we're all I think it's just different ways of getting to the same point.
Like Jesus Christ, the AFC is just so tough.
Yeah, it's loaded. So speaking of a tough AFC, there is.
We were talking about the team that finished in the 1 seed.
Yeah, let's finish in the 1 seed last year in the AFC, which, as we said on the show, and I believe I did call the most fraudulent 1 seed in the history of the NFL. That did get proven correct.
You were right based on the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I told you what was going to happen. The Tennessee Titans here, big additions. Bobby Trees coming back from the ACL. Still love Robert Woods. So that's a good addition for them. Ben Jones, Austin Hooper, and they did draft Treylon Burks. They did lose Julio Jones, Roger Saffold, David Quessenberry, which are 2 big losses on their offensive line, especially in the run game. Rashawn Evans, the linebacker, is gone, and AJ Brown.
little smile on your face whenever you said that one.
Look, man,
because that boy's a stud.
Oh man, you're talking about one of the probably 8 most talented receivers in all of football.
He said it best whenever all the extensions came out, and he was like, "Look, all these guys
got paid.
They all got paid. I'm the only one that got traded," and he's not wrong either. That's a very,
that's what
very,
I'm saying.
very
They all got
point.
paid except for him. And look, I'm happy. He didn't.
Any Colts fan should be very happy to see AJ Brown. It's not to the scale of Russell Wilson leaving the NFC West, but it's pretty similar.
Well, yeah, a quarterback always going to be
right, exactly. But if I was an AFC South fan, if I was a fan of a team in the AFC South not named the Tennessee Titans, and I saw AJ Brown get dealt and get a long-term extension outside of the AFC South, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, because here's the thing: as a Colts fan, is I was never worried about Derrick Henry. He never really he never really killed us when he played us. He never killed us. You know who did kill us every time? AJ Brown. He always killed Indianapolis.
Well, that was the trend last year for the Colts. The Colts couldn't stop the pass last year. That was the thing that hurt them the most. They gave up.
They were kind of average.
They gave up a lot of big plays.
Yeah, they were more average, which a lot of that happened after Julian Blackmon, of course, tore the Achilles.
Yeah.
That's when all that happened, when they were rolling out Andrew Sandejo. Luckily that's not going to happen this year. But yeah, so look, the Tennessee Titans. They're in a weird spot, man, because they're not rebuilding, but I think their I think their window's done. At least for now, for the next few years.
I think with the Tannehill contract, it's over for right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying is so they draft Malik Willis, they draft Treylon Burks, they draft Roger McCreary, so they bring in some young guys who they're hoping, can replace some of these guys they lost. They're hoping Malik Willis can be that franchise guy that Tannehill, can't. He can get them over the hump. I'm not necessarily sold, on him being that type of guy. I think he clearly, and I think we said this on our, our draft preview, is this is a guy that he clearly has the biggest upside out of any quarterback in the draft. But he also has the lowest floor of any quarterback in the draft. There's no in between with him. Treylon Burks and another guy, they compare him to, he's AJ Brown. Why would we pay AJ Brown all that money when we can just draft, his replacement and have, Treylon Burks perform exactly like AJ Brown? I don't think that's how this necessarily works. You don't just especially as a rookie. Now, could he become AJ Brown? Yeah, he absolutely could. But I mean, you're talking about like you're asking a rookie to come in and in year one be a top 10 wide receiver in football.
Well, this is the price you pay for paying a running back top dollar. It's just the reality of it to me personally.
And like a middle of the road quarterback too.
Yeah, they gave Ryan.
Yeah, like
Tannehill
I can
way too much
understand.
money.
Like, I mean, I know we always say like never pay running back and all that. And it's true.
If there was ever a team that needed to pay the running back, it would be the Titans paying
I
running
think
back.
their big issue was paying Tannehill $45 million.
It is
in a market to where that wasn't norm. Like you have to remember when they made that deal, your quarterbacks were getting 30 to 35.
Right, but like
So-
the reality of the whole thing in terms of the receiver position goes is like, will Treylon Burks ever be AJ Brown? Those are tall shoes to fill. But if there is a receiver in this class, like Treylon Burks is the most AJ Brown-ish receiver in this class. So it's like, I understand why they did what they did in terms of trying to save money and trying to keep the core intact and trying to keep Derrick Henry in the backfield. But it's just it's the price you pay of doing business. It's like you couldn't keep AJ Brown, so you had to find the Aldi's version of AJ Brown, which is Treylon Burks. Yeah, and it makes sense. I get it, but it's just like you already know what AJ Brown is. He's shown you. I mean, health issues be damned. He has shown you that whenever he's on the field, he is a way above average talent at the wide receiver position. He is one of the best. And Treylon Burks, you don't know if that's going to be the case or not. And I'm a huge Treylon Burks fan. I think he will be legit. But even saying that, I don't know if he's going to be AJ Brown legit. And so it's tough. It's tough not to consider that a downgrade.
Yeah. So I mean, like here's the thing too. So that's what I was saying is like I think they're not rebuilding completely, but they're clearly drafting for the future.
Yeah.
And
they have to at this point.
Yeah. And so like you're relying on like you might take a step back this year, next year, and I think they do. But if these guys hit, you're obviously pretty well off for the future. If these guys don't hit, you're in big trouble.
It's easy to point fingers at the Titans that, obviously.
Well, it's easy.
But think about this, man. Like, so, they were in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, and they damn near got to the Super Bowl. They had Kansas City on the ropes, and they almost put them away. Yeah. They were the 1 seed last year. So it's not like their office is making bad decisions per se. It's just now they couldn't quite get there, and they have a running back who is their entire franchise is coming off an injury.
29 years old, which is generally when the
right. We don't know. Do I think Derrick Henry's still going to get a ton of carries? Yeah, I think that's
it's literally With Derrick Henry, to me, it's literally all workload based. Like it's not like if you look, his efficiency numbers have dropped the last 3 years. Every year, the last 3 years.
He still wrecks games, though, man. I watched him destroy Buffalo. And I watched him beat New England in Foxborough in a playoff game. He can destroy. Huh?
Yeah, that's 2 years ago, though.
I'm just saying.
Like that's what we're saying, though. Is it like generally when you're a running back, you're coming off of a foot injury, a broken foot, surgery. You're 29 years old, and you have that big of a workload, not only just from the NFL, but from college, from high school, like. I mean, he has a huge workload on his body.
Sure.
And like you clearly see, like when you look at the like metrics of it, like the rushing metrics, the efficiency metrics, you clearly see the line go like this. And generally, as you get older, and especially coming off major injury, that line just doesn't go up. Most of the time, it keeps going like that. And that's the reality of it. I think everything with Derrick Henry, and like you saw it last year, honestly, because that running game didn't miss a beat when D'Onta Foreman was in. It literally did not miss a beat. Same yards per carry, same explosive runs, same efficiency in the red zone as they had with Derrick Henry. They had with D'Onta Foreman.
So you're saying D'Onta Foreman's as good as Derrick Henry?
I mean, like, if you want to be, like, completely honest about it, last year, they didn't see a single drop-off.
You guys have a good night. I'm done for the evening. I'll see everybody next
No,
week.
that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you can let your feelings get in the way, but I'm giving you facts. That's facts over feelings. That's facts. There's nothing you can show me that disputes that fact. So, and like what Drew said,
Derrick Henry is a different back, man. He's built different than Deontay Foreman and people like that. Like he can take. I mean, he's 29 years old. Yeah, he's going to drop off. I mean, shoot, anybody with that kind of workload is going to drop off. But to say like any running back can go in there and make the Tennessee Titans better than what it would be, it'd be the same thing with Derrick Henry. I think that's ludicrous. I don't think there's no way.
So hold on, you're giving me any running back in football that can step into the Titans and make them the same as they are with Derrick Henry?
Yeah, Marlon Mack. You put Marlon Mack in the Titans.
You put Jonathan Taylor in a Titans uniform. They're not the same.
Different. You're talking about.
You just said any back.
You're going to compare Jonathan Taylor to Deontay Foreman and Derrick Henry.
No,
I'm talking about. You're saying Deontay Foreman is on the same level as
I'm saying is when Dante Foreman took over that role from Derrick Henry when he was out, the rushing attack did not see any drop-off at all in efficiency and in rushing metrics. The only
Deontay Foreman, like 2 years post an Achilles injury versus Derrick Henry trying to come back from an injury. No, it was basically the same. But if you look at Derrick Henry versus Deontay Foreman,
you're clearly
it's not a contest.
You're clearly going to take Derrick Henry,
which is at the.
If that was the case, they could have. They literally just traded Derrick Henry and drafted Breece Hall or somebody.
We're talking about the 2022 season coming up, okay? Like Deontay Foreman has had multiple years coming off of the Achilles injury. Derrick Henry is presumed healthy coming back from his injury that he dealt with last year. Derrick Henry is without a doubt, a better option than Deontay Foreman.
I agree.
If you look at the numbers on the spreadsheet, Deontay Foreman might have been better last year than Derrick Henry.
I'm not saying he was
back
better
from the injury.
I'm not even saying he was better.
I mean, he was. Like Deontay Foreman was better. Last year he was coming back from the injury, but Deontay Foreman's Achilles injury he's been coming back from was an injury from 3 years ago. And we're talking about Derrick Henry coming back from an injury that just happened. It's not a contest.
No, I'm saying before the injury happened, the numbers were the same before Derrick Henry got hurt and after Deontay Foreman took over. It was the same efficiency numbers from before the injury. Clearly.
But how do you really compare those guys though?
Well, I think so. Here's where Derrick Henry is better than almost every running back in football outside of Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb. To me, he's the third best running back in football. And that's because where you saw the drop off with Derrick Henry out was in the passing game, because teams were not scared of Dante Foreman like they are from Derrick Henry, and that's clearly what that entire offense revolves around is the threat of Derrick Henry. So you take that threat out, you don't have the success in play action, you don't have the success in drop back, passes and all that stuff. That you would have with Derrick Henry in there. You clearly saw Ryan Tannehill regress last year from what he had been the previous 2 years once Derrick Henry was out. And so I think that's where you see the biggest drop-off. It's not necessarily the rushing efficiency because, as I've stated, as Drew has even stated, that's been declining for a couple of years now. And I think clearly, where it is with Derrick Henry is it's all workload based. But I think where Derrick Henry being back does help the Titans is in the passing game. But now they just traded their second best weapon on the entire roster. So you take a step back from there. I just don't I don't think the Titans will be bad. I don't think they're going to be a bad team. I honestly don't.
My variable is make damn sure they're not. He's too. My variable is too good of a.
They're not. Yeah, they're not.
Their schedule is brutal.
But that's what I was going to say. Is they have a really, really, really.
Yeah, they gotta play first place schedule.
Yeah, and on top of that, they took significant steps back in multiple places on their roster. Their offensive line took a massive step back.
Yeah.
Their defensive line.
Losing Roger Saffold is huge for that offense.
Well, Quessenberry too in the run game. Quessenberry at tackle last year was a really, really good, like in the run game. And so, I mean, you're taking a step back along the offensive line. You're taking a step back in the wide receiver room. Like now, like maybe as a whole, like I still like Robert Woods. I think I think he'll be fine. I'm not worried about that. But I think as a whole, like teams are not scared of Robert Woods. Teams are not scared of Treylon Burks. Teams were terrified of A.J. Brown.
Yeah. The wide receiver 3 is, the Nick Westbrook, Akini, or however you spell his name. Like, yeah. Like that's your wide receiver 3. That's your, and like
and like heaven forbid, they have
nobody's worried about Austin Hooper or Jeff Swaim.
And I'm not saying the Colts have some world beater, wide receiver room either, because I don't think they do. I think it's better than what people give it credit for. But
they've got a better defense to combat the lack of offense than Tennessee does.
Yeah, well, I think especially linebackers and secondary. I think defensive lines can be similar because I think they do have a really good defensive line in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But I think their linebackers and their secondary, outside of their safeties are really good. But I think their cornerbacks and their linebackers are rough.
Yeah,
their secondary is bad.
Kevin Byard and Amari Hooker
are really, probably the two best safeties in football.
That's a really good safety. I mean, Denver might have something to say about that, but that's a really, really good safety room. But the secondary really depends on what we see from Caleb Farley in year 2. I know, Landon, just from discussions you and I had, that you and I both really like Caleb Farley just from a talent standpoint, but he had the injury issues coming into the draft.
Yeah, he can't stay on the field. And,
right.
Well, not only that, but I think his biggest aspect, like his biggest strength was his speed.
Right. So you've got that issue.
Multiple ACL tears.
Yeah. You got that issue you got to worry about, and then like Roger McCreary, the corner out of Alabama or out of Auburn this year. Like that. They've got some good young pieces in the secondary that have health concerns and things like that you just got to see how it plays out.
And I like McCreary too. I think he's a good player. Like he's undersized, so I worry about him against like bigger.
And Elijah Molden too. Like they've got good players in the secondary. It's just it's just piecing it all together. And that's one thing they do have a leg up on it is Mike Vrabel. Like he's going to figure it out from a defensive standpoint. Like he is going to figure it out. Harold Landry, Bud Dupree, Jeffrey Simmons, like those guys are going to figure it out. But I don't think it's going to be enough to compete with Indy in the division. I don't.
Yeah, I agree.
As deep as the AFC is in general, if you're not going to win the AFC South, it's going to be really tough for you to cut into the wild card.
There's only one team coming out of the South.
Yeah,
that's how I feel too.
So now that we're saying that, let's give our one team to come out of the South. I think we all know where this is going. We talked about each team and their prospects for this year, some of the losses, some of all that, some of the additions and all that good stuff. So let's get into our predictions here on how we think this division plays out. You already know what I'm doing, so I'm going to give the floor to Andrew and Jared, which I think we all know where they're going as well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. Indianapolis wins the division. Tennessee's still the second best team in that division. Jacksonville third, Houston fourth for me.
I got the same exact way. I think the Colts are the only team that makes the playoffs out of this division. I've got the Colts win the division. They get the bid, and then the Titans, Jags, Texans finishing it out. But outside of the division winner, I don't think there's really too much to talk about here.
Yeah, you already know where I'm going. I actually did kind of because I do think Jacksonville is going to be a lot better than what people think they're going to be. I did debate moving them to 2 because I think they're going to be a problem, and I don't think people are really
they're going to be better for sure.
They're going to be that team's going to be a problem if Lawrence makes the jump. If Lawrence makes the jump, that team's going to be an issue. But Yeah, outside of that, I mean, obviously I've got the Colts winning the division. I'm going to pick the Colts every year in this division. Like, I don't care if, like, Curtis Painter's the quarterback. I'm going to pick the Colts to win this division every single year. And then I do have the Titans, the Jaguars, and then the Texans.
Hey, if you're betting on the division, I did pick the Titans to win the division the last 2 years. Betting money would have been pretty good on that one. So
I think Vegas still has Tennessee as the favorite.
They
Right?
do not. They do not.
I was gonna say that's still the case. You should go bet all your money on the Colts.
Okay, I must have
No,
changed.
after the Matt Ryan trade, the Colts have been the favorite since
As they should be.
Matt Ryan deal.
As they should be.
I believe the Colts are like minus like 130 or something at the time. Last time I looked, they were like minus 130 or something. So.
I know I'm doing this with a couple of Colts fans, but like if you're listening out there and you think that anybody's being biased or anything like that, like
I am being biased.
Maybe you are, and maybe you are.
This is like Drew on the NFC West show.
No, maybe you are, and that's fair. But I think it's pretty clear at this point with the losses that the Titans dealt with and the additions the Colts have dealt with. Like, if you're betting on any team other than the Colts to win this division, I just think it's crazy. I really do. Like personally, I have no fucking ties to this division whatsoever. I think picking anybody other than the Colts is crazy, personally.
Yeah, I agree. So let's end the episode here. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know this division was really fun, and there might be some more news coming out of this division here soon. We don't know. There's been some rumblings of a certain.
There's some rumblings I heard about today.
There's been some rumblings about a certain wide receiver possibly signing with the Colts as well. Possibly being ready about week 6, week 7. We could have more news coming out of this division shortly, but right now we don't. So let's go ahead and close this. We want to thank all you guys for the support. Go ahead, leave your crazy comments in the section because I know y'all are absolutely bananas. Titans fans, drop those tears down below. I want to hear them all. I want to hear you cry the entire time. And that's fine. You can call me whatever name you want because you still don't have a championship. And look, I'm just saying, no titles. You can't talk to me. And then
I'm happy with that too. No lie.
Yeah, you got one off their back, didn't you?
You just a bit short.
You're about a yard short there for Drew. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, like we said earlier, go ahead, drop a like, a subscribe, and click that bell notification. You want to, even if you're a Titans fan. It's all fun and games. Actually I did donate some money to a Titans fan last night.
I saw that. It was dope.
Yeah. So, it's friendly rivalry. I know I give y'all shit all the time, but at the same time, like, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of family that are Titans fans, and it's all love. It's all rivalry. And like I said, you still don't have a title, so you can't talk to me. Go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, let us know your predictions for this division, and go ahead and drop a subscription if you're listening on any type of audio format, whether it's Spotify, Apple, or anything like that. Just anything you do to support us, and make sure you do follow us on Twitter at 3Man Rush Podcast. And then all of our Twitter handles are in, the podcast or up on this YouTube video. We're super excited to bring you guys some more. And later on this week, we will be dropping our NFC South preview as well. A lot of news coming out there. Is Tom Brady a Dolphin? Is he not a Dolphin? Is he tampering? Is he not tampering? We don't know.
2022, you can be anything you want to be.
Speaking of, happy birthday, Tom Brady, 45 years old. Today he will officially be the oldest player since the 1920s to take a snap in a football game on opening day. So it's pretty cool to watch that. NFC South coming next week. We will be back, or not next week, but later this week. And boys, we got football tomorrow. So let's get off here. Let's watch some football tomorrow. Let's enjoy it. Have a great day. And thank you guys so much for listening.